Hello everyone, it is episode 128 of the ProSynth Network live show. It is the 16th of September 2022. It's just gone 7 PM here in the UK. Welcome to you all wherever you might be. I hope you've had a wonderful week since we last met. We've got some great guests for you today. We've got a world exclusive, so do stick around for that one. We'll be doing that a little bit later on, so don't go away. But in the meantime, before we get off with any of that stuff, can I please remind you, could you like, comment, subscribe, or share, or do all four? That would be fantastic if you haven't done already. Share the link around, and make sure if you haven't subscribed, please do. And leave comments in the chat during the show. If you're not watching live, you can put the comments in the comment section underneath the video. And of course, do hit that little thumbs up thing, because that gives us a little bit of a boost in the algorithm. I don't know how it works, but apparently that helps. So if you could do that, that would be fantastic. Also, if you want to get in touch with us, of course, you can find us on the Facebook page, which is our main central hub for the community. So just look for ProSynth Network on Facebook. But of course, we are also on places like Twitter, Instagram, and of course right here on YouTube if you're watching us there, which I think most of you are. If you want to ask a question of myself, the other hosts, or our guests today, then please stick a big capital Q in front of it, because Ben's eyesight is pretty rubbish, so he just needs that to be, pick it out, and then he'll just drop it in the bucket. Makes my life a lot easier. So stick a big Q in the front, and that would make that easier. And then last but not least, we go cap in hand to you every week, but it does help, honestly, it really does. Every penny cent that you give to us helps keeps this whole thing running. So if you want to help us, you can donate at our PayPal channel, which is right there on the screen. You can do that there, or if you're watching live on YouTube, underneath your little chat window there's super chat and super stickers, and all you got to do is just click one of those, and I think it asks for your card details, and then you can donate as little or as much as you feel that we're worth. Hopefully we're worth a few quid or a few pence. That'd be fantastic if you could do that. Of course, it's not obligatory. You don't have to do this. We provide this free of charge for our community, but it does help keep and pay for all of this stuff. If you're watching on catch up, then you can also do that. I think it's just around there somewhere underneath the video. There's a little heart button that says thanks next to it, and it works exactly the same, and you can donate through that. There we go. That's all my begging done. Let's crack on. Let's first of all go to our illustrious leader up in the north of England. I haven't seen him for a week. I know he's been a very busy man. Let's bring in Mr. Ben Simpson.
Hello. I was
I
was just typing in Viper Graphics into the chat.
Somebody of course, merch. Yes, I
where you can get a T-shirt from. I was just typing it. I think it is vipergraphics.com, but it might be.
It's vipergraphics.co.uk.
Yeah, right. I'm great. I'm very excited about tonight's show. We've not had an exclusive before, have we? Not on this scale now. Quite exciting. And I just want to have a quick plug of tomorrow night's gig, if I can.
Oh, of course.
Because Electromantics are playing at the Lion's Den in Manchester. It's our first ever gig in Manchester City Centre. So,
big one.
We'd like people to come along and watch,
following such possible luminaries as the Happy Mondays, Oasis, New Order, Frank Sidebottom.
Well, there you go.
A few others, yeah. May he rest in peace. Big boots indeed. Yeah, big boots to fill. Well, good luck with that one. We'll plug that at the end as well if you missed it, if anybody missed it. But do you know what we should do? What we actually should do is put those details in a banner, and we can flash them up later on. Tell me again, where is it?
It's at the Lion's Den, which is at Deansgate, Manchester.
Oh, I know Deansgate, yeah. Deansgate, Manchester.
It's tomorrow night.
Lovely.
Great plug.
So, look at this. While you were saying that. Okay, so we'll flash that up on the screen at periods during the show, just to remind everyone subconsciously where to go for a great night tomorrow night. Excellent stuff. Other than that, Ben, have you been busy in the music technology world doing anything interesting?
No, I've had a bit of a break. To be honest, I've had a bit of a break. just so I can come at it from a fresh angle, because I seem to be following the same patterns all the time. So I've concentrated a little bit more on my other job, and I'm going to be hopefully refreshed and ready to go next week. Hopefully, cool. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Good stuff. Well, good to see you as always, mate. And let's go across to the world's greatest and friendliest synth tech, who is never off a YouTube channel somewhere in the world. It's Mr. Kent Spong. Hello, sir.
Oh, me. Oh, hi.
You again.
Yeah, me.
3 nights in a row, love.
Yeah, I know. I've been asked to do one tomorrow night as well.
Oh, wow.
So
details?
I'll be there.
That's okay.
That's about
Anyway,
it.
nice?
No, not really.
No? Okay, go on. Busy week this week? Anything interesting coming through Spong Towers?
I got another CS80 coming today.
Oh, wow.
We weren't expecting it. That would have been nice if we'd had a bit of a heads up, but there you go. So that's stuck in the hall. Yeah, all sorts of bits and pieces going on. You know what it's like, you know. But what I want to do is I want to take use tonight as an opportunity to speak to a software developer about perhaps getting Anaglyph made into a plugin.
Oh, well, I think we've got the right sort of guests to ask those questions. So why don't we bring them in? Let's do them one at a time. I guess we have to start at the top of the tree. I'm sure Mitchell won't mind if we start with Dan. Dan Goldstein of Cherry Audio. Welcome, sir. Again, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's great to be back. Hi, guys.
How have you been since we last met?
All we do is work. We have, there's just so many instruments that we want to do, and it just feels like we never stop.
Yeah.
But we've been great. Been fantastic.
Nice. Cool t-shirt, by the way.
Hey, that's our CA 2600.
Nice. Like that a lot. And of course, the man that designed that user interface, if I'm not mistaken, is the one and only Mitchell Sigman.
Hi there. How you
Welcome,
doing?
sir.
Thank you.
How are you?
I am good. Like Dan says, we're always busy doing things at once. So it's like juggling chainsaws, but keyboards.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Well, look, we're going to find out in a very short while what you guys, or get a hint maybe of what you guys have been so busy working on. So if you are in any way interested, and God, why wouldn't you be, in what Cherry Audio have been working on, then do stick around, because we do, ladies and gentlemen, we have a world exclusive premiere of a teaser video. I know it sounds like you're building up for a teaser, but it's a cool teaser, and it will get your brains going about what this might be. It's very interesting, so stick around. Obviously, this thing that we're going to sort of premiere is still being worked on. It's still it's not due for a few weeks yet, so we can't say too much about it, but we'll try and squeeze Dan and Mitch to maybe give us some hints, some flavors of what might be going on. But of course, let us start with, and I think everyone that I've spoken to that has played this, let's start with congratulating you guys on Elka-X, because that was your last release, and I think the overwhelming consensus is that it's bloody brilliant. It really is. It's fantastic. So, big. Let's give these guys a cheer. Actually, you don't give these out very often. There we go. So, congratulations on Elka-X. Has its success surprised you in any way?
I wouldn't say it surprised us. It's the Synth-X is a great synthesizer. If anything, I was surprised at how few people knew about the Synth-X.
Really?
To me, I mean, as a synth guy, I spent years trying to find one, and it was something I wanted really bad, because they're not easy to find, especially in the United States. And my Synth-X was imported from Italy. It was actually refurbished by Mario Maggi, who was the original inventor, and so it's signed inside by him. And that was what it took to get a hold of one. So I've always thought it's a really cool synth.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a lot of our customers were kind of surprised by it and didn't know about it. It does seem like people have discovered it now, and they really seem to love it, and that's cool. That's part of the fun, is being able to share some of these more esoteric instruments with the public.
Was the Synth-X always on your list of we're definitely going to do one of these one day? Was it always, or was it something that came from the left field?
Yeah, we always wanted to do it. There are certain synths that we absolutely want to do, but they can be kind of challenging. In some ways, the Elka-X is probably the most complex instrument that we've done, because of the dual phonic nature of it, the dual layers, the sequencer, the multi-mode filter, just all the things that go into it. It's an extremely capable synth, and we had to get all of that right and figure out the right way to do that in software. So it was an interesting challenge. Yeah.
Mitchell, your handiwork is what we see at the front end there. Was it a particular challenge? Because the Synth-X has a very simple, straightforward, Prophet-like interface.
Right.
So for you, was it an easy job to kind of convert that into software, or were there challenges there?
As far as drawing the UI goes, yeah. I mean, honestly, my bigger concern was this is a relatively, straightforward, almost blah UI. And, as a designer, you don't want people to look at it and go, oh, this looks like a plugin from 2001, So I did the best I could to make it not boring, and did my usual crazy font matching to make sure the fonts and the spacing and everything looks right. Spent a fair amount of time on that logo, believe it or not. And again, funny thing, you go to find a logo for a Synth-X, good luck finding a high-res version of that, because it's just a rare thing. But really the hardest thing, probably for me, the thing I worked on the most, was the sequencer. Because the sequencer, I kind of designed how it works. And just to be clear, I don't have to code any of it, thank goodness. But the sequencer on the original is not that great. So we didn't want to just reproduce it, because it's the kind of thing, if we did, no one would ever use it, because your DAW is going to do that a million times better. So we decided it would be better to do a really cool, fun step sequencer and make it really capable. And we added the displays, and here you can see right there. We added the displays to give you the note number and give you the step number and all that. So it's a little more like a micro composer in a way. And we just wanted to make something really usable and fun that, gave you something that programming your DAW wouldn't. So there was a lot of work on that, and a lot of back and forth with Dan, because a lot of what always happens, Dan saying to me, well, what happens if they do this? And I go, I don't know, I just drew it. So a lot of going, okay, I guess now we got to figure out how that's going to work, whatever that is. I think people don't necessarily realize how much work that can be.
That sequencer, that's a great example of the challenges of designing an instrument like this, because the original sequencer, it's very capable, but you have to hold down combinations of buttons to get it to do things. And holding down combinations of buttons in a software synth doesn't make any sense. So at one point, we were just going to scrap the sequencer. It just doesn't make sense in a soft synth. But we kept at it, and we figured out a way. We added a few more buttons, and we figured out a way to make it useful in a software synthesizer. And I'm glad we did, because it's a huge part of the sound.
Absolutely. I mean, I think both Kent and I, when we first dabbled with it, we came together and we both said literally almost at the same time, hey, I love this sound. And this is one patch using that sequencer. And it's just this rolling thing that obviously you can change the keys. But that's using the sequencer, and it's so inspiring. It's just a really simple thing, but you can just press and hold that down and start doing something else on top. And we were just coming up with stuff straight away. And so I'm really, really glad you persevered and you did it, because, I mean, this is full. I mean, and it is full to the brim with some amazing presets, and we've got James Dyson in the chat there, who's designed some of those as well, and there's some amazing presets. There's all the obvious stuff in there. Of course, you've got the Jar laser harp sounds in there, and some of the other kind of classic, well-known stuff. But there's a whole bunch of other things, and it's just a really amazing synth. So you've obviously got
for me, it was the things they didn't put in. Right,
of course.
Now, the things that weren't there that I was glad weren't there was, when you want that sequence to loop properly, you got to hit that stop button just right.
Right on the money.
Otherwise, you're going to not get it. The other thing, there was no horrible whirring fan sound. Yay!
You mean it's not authentic?
Oh, you wait until they get really dusty and they start doing this.
We can add that if you want.
Oh, I don't know. It's too real. It's too real, man. I can't take it. It's too real.
There should be a button, authentic button. Yeah, because that's the trend nowadays, isn't it? You know, the vintage knobs, or everyone's putting these vintageizers.
Seriously, you don't want it. You don't want
sample that sound, send it over.
We actually, it's funny you bring that up, because if I'm remembering right, on most of our analog instruments, as of late, there's a drift knob. And the drift knob, the more you turn that up, the more it makes the oscillators and other parameters kind of go a little wonky, so it'll sound more like a real analog synth. But Dan wisely decided not to do the drift knob on this one, because it has digitally controlled oscillators, like a Juno type synth. The oscillators don't drift.
Yeah.
So we were trying to be correct about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan, you've obviously got one there to your right. What was the process that you used to, do you take that instrument into an office somewhere, and then you all sit around it, you play with it, you do stuff with it? How does that process work? That initial sort of investigation of the original instrument work?
Oh, it's such a long process. There's a lot of pieces to it. Some of the process is just, no matter how long you've owned a synthesizer for, no matter how much you've used it, there's probably features on it that you don't quite understand, or haven't, completely understood. We have to understand every bit of this in order to recreate it properly. So that means studying the user manual, learning how the sequencer works, learning what the difference is between glide and portamento, because there are two different features on a Synth-X. One of them's glide, one of them's portamento, and they're very different. So first, it's just understanding it. And then it's a lot of lab work. It's looking at the oscillator waveforms on an oscilloscope. It's checking out the different filter modes on the multi-mode filter and figuring out what they do. What's the difference between bandpass 1 and bandpass 2? And looking at the schematics to understand how they did that. Reading the data sheets on the Curtis chips to understand how that works. And then there's just a lot of the overall design. What are we going to change? What are we going to add? The original Synth-X doesn't have an arpeggiator. We added one to it because it needed one. As you've said, the sequencer can do so much, but the sequencer can be difficult to program. So you can get a lot of cool sounds just with the arpeggiator, or if you combine the sequencer with the arpeggiator, you can get some amazing things. And then a lot of design work on what effects we were going to add and how the dual layer system was going to work. But then it's just all kinds of turning the knob. How slow does the LFO go? How fast does the LFO go? What's the actual wave shape of the LFO? What are all the various limits? How does LFO2 work? And features like the acceleration on LFO2, which is really unique. That should be on every synth. That LFO2 acceleration feature on the Synth-X should be on every synth, and it's not. It's on almost no synths. And so understanding what it does and what the limits are, there's just, I'd like to say it's glamorous, but it's lots and lots of just pushing a key and looking at a scope and then trying to replicate that.
Yeah.
Another one. Oh, good.
Oh, no, after you.
You were asking, I forgot about this one. Another thing that we sort of had to figure out how to implement was that whole LFO2 section on the original there's a big joystick there, and that's essentially the joystick section. But when you're using an external MIDI controller, it sort of takes those apart. And so we had to figure out how to implement that. So it looks the same as the original very much, but it really is different. It's because in the original LFO2, you could only make it work by moving the joystick. Right. And we kind of realized we added this initial amount control, which means you can use it as a second LFO without actually having to push a mod wheel or something, which gives it a lot more flexibility. Essentially, you have 2 LFOs available at all times. So making that section kind of make sense without being attached to a controller was also another sort of thing we had to think out and figure out and decide.
Was there a question about the acceleration thing there, Ben?
Yeah, it's from Mark Acker. He says, what is this acceleration feature for LFO2 on the Cherry Audio Synth-X?
Could you explain maybe exactly what it does?
Yeah, it's really clever and very simple. So when you turn up the mod wheel, it not only increases the amount of modulation, but it can also speed up the modulation. So the modulation gets faster and faster and deeper as you turn up the mod wheel. And that's right off the original hardware. It's a very clever, very simple, very clever, very expressive feature that we just don't see on most vintage synths.
Except on the original, they called it delta frequency. And I personally will take responsibility for changing the name of that to acceleration because, do you know what delta is? So I changed it because I figured if I didn't know what it meant, nobody else would. But it's the same feature.
Yeah.
This is, and I say it all the time, but it's the hardest part of doing any of these projects is figuring out what we're going to change, what we're going to add, how to make it a little bit better without taking away the spirit of the original. And it's so tempting. It's always so tempting to just, let's add more oscillators and more filter modes and let's just turn it into something that it never was. We always have to dial that back.
Yeah.
Little things like adding velocity. We added a 2-pole 12 dB per octave filter mode that the original doesn't have. But that's good. That was a good movie. But yeah, little changes. We like to make little changes. We like to make little improvements, but we never like to take away from the spirit and the soul of the original synth, and that's hard. It's hard to do.
I'm not wonderfully au fait with the original, so I want to ask a question about the effects. How many of those effects are on the original, if any? I'm guessing none.
No, the original has an integrated chorus effect.
Yeah,
okay.
Chorus.
So the echo and the reverb, and that's all stuff that you've added in there.
Right. So we added echo and reverb into it, but the chorus is original and it's modeled after the original. Although we made it stereo, it's mono on the original, and we made it stereo. Again, how far do you take it? Little improvements that make it sound better. We're all for that. As long as it doesn't take too much away from the original. But yeah, if you think about it, if you think about synths from the early 80s that have integrated chorus effects, things like the Jupiter 4 and the Juno 106 and the Juno 60, they're usually one oscillator synths. And the Synth-X is so interesting in that you have dual oscillators and a built-in chorus effect. It can get really thick.
And there's 2 choruses, right, Dan?
Well, there are 2 layers, so the chorus can be different on each layer, which is also neat.
Yeah, absolutely. And where did you get the algorithms for the echo and the reverb? Was that from your library of stuff, or did you get inspiration from other reverb effects to put into this one?
The reverb is our Cherry Audio reverb effect that we've been improving. The Elka-X includes the Galactic reverb that was originally released on Dreamsynth, and then we've put it on other product synths because it's great, and we turned it into its own plugin. Yeah, we just love that big lush reverb on vintage synths. They're made for each other.
Mitchell, I want to ask you, because you're obviously a player as well. What do you think of this as an instrument, from a player's perspective? Take the Cherry Audio hat off. How does this sort of rank in your list of playable soft synths?
Well, I mean, as far as programming it, because it's got the classic kind of, Memorymoog, Prophet kind of layout, it's extremely easy to program quickly, I found. And it makes a lot of, it's one of those synths where it's hard to make a bad sound on it.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. But it has some cool features that you don't see on other synths, namely the pulse width modulation cross mod thing, which I've not really seen in any other synth. It sounds like literally like a cross between pulse width modulation and ring modulation, but it's kind of more musical than ring mods tend to be. But forgetting that, the dual layer aspect is really, really neat. Especially because you can pan them individually, and I'm going to sound like such a shill here, but sort of quite by accident, the way it's set up with the dual layer thing, you can solo which layer you're programming. So it makes it very fast to go back and forth between the layers and program and combine sounds. And so you can make these great amalgam sounds, kind of like a Prophet 10 sort of thing, that you just, obviously you could do that sort of thing if you had two synths on two tracks and a DAW, you could combine them together. But in reality, the result you're going to get having it all in one place on one synth is much different. Yeah. So you can really kind of explore a whole other realm of polysynth sounds than you could with a most conventional one sound synths. It sounds simple, but it really, really is powerful in use. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Any more questions from the chat?
Faulty Tenor, who's Sean Johnson Music.
We know him. Yeah.
As a question for Dan, any chance we could get the Dreamsynth effects section as a standalone rack unit? I love the effects section on that one. Well, that's the Galactic Reverb and more, isn't it?
Yeah, every once in a while we get requests for that, and I don't know, maybe we'll do a multi-effect at some point. It'd be
it's not a terrible idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, there's actually in the Dreamsynth, there's a Leslie emulation that I created that was unique. The Elka-X has a new ping pong delay. That's the first synth that we've put the ping pong delay into. So we're constantly improving these effects and coming up with new fun things. Of course, there's the tape algorithm that became our Stardust 201, and that's built into Elka-X. So as we keep building more effects for our library, we're trying to integrate everything we can into these instruments to make them more and more fun.
Hey Dan, what if we did like 4 effects that you could do at once with a reverb, and we could call it, bear with me, the Quadra.
Ooh.
Quadra.
Hello.
This is turning into like what do they call it? Brainstorming session. Let's throw some things on the wall, see if they stick.
This is a really bad 20-year-old gear joke.
Yeah, Quadra good.
Next, you'd be doing 8 and putting them into a rack, so you can call it an octa rack.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's getting bigger.
Older. The problem with getting older is that your 20-year-old gear jokes are 30 years old.
Dude, you know what? I got to do the math on this. I bought my Quadra brand new when I was 18. I really did, for my guitar rack that I thought was so cool then. And so if I was 18, yeah, that's 30 years.
Yeah. Scary. Big thank you to Adamski. Good to see you sort of back. You've been away for a little while, but it's nice to see you lurking around all the places as usual. And if you haven't already, go and look at Adamski's YouTube channel. I think it was on YouTube. I certainly saw it on YouTube and probably Facebook, where there's a new demonstration of one of the synths that he's building. These wonderful Advantage.
I want to build them for him.
Yeah, and wonderful things. So there's another demonstration on there. But thank you ever so much for the donation. That's wonderful. Thank you. So Elka-X is the latest instrument. We're gonna, if you've just joined the show, we're gonna have a special world exclusive premiere of the teaser trailer for the next Cherry Audio product. And so yeah, stick around for that one. But of course, Elka-X isn't everything that you do. You do lots of other things as well, which we're all very familiar with. And of course, there's the Voltage rack as well. It's fantastic range of products. where do you see this going in the future? Are you just going to keep on churning out great synths after great synths at fantastic prices? Is that the long game for you guys?
What do you think, Mitchell? Should we keep doing it?
Probably. Well, it's funny. Like I was talking to my best friend yesterday, and he always is giving me ideas that I don't ask for, but he always asks me. He says, "Well, are you guys going to do hardware? You should do hardware. You should make a this. You should make a that." And I mean, we love hardware. Hardware is awesome, and there's the tactile thing and all the cool things about hardware. And I always say the same thing to him though. It's like, well, it's really expensive and difficult to make hardware, and now these days, supply chain and all of that. So more than ever, I kind of feel like we will stay in our lane. I mean, I'm not officially speaking for the company, but this seems to be the path of least resistance. People seem to like what we're doing. We always, Dan and I were just talking about an hour ago, it always seems like we're going to run out of stuff to do. There's a finite amount of vintage stuff you can do. But at the same time, then we go, oh yeah, we were going to do this and this and this and that, and then it ends up being this huge laundry list. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think like we'll keep doing it as long as we can. And there's always, we've branched out into effects a little bit. We'd like to explore that more. Who knows what we'll explore in the future? We sort of stick with what we like to think we're good at. People sometimes say, well, why do you make a guitar processor? It's like, well, it's not really our area.
What's a guitar?
Yeah. So, and there's a million of them. So, we get a real kick out of making things like the Elka and like we've done the Quadra and things like that, where nobody's done it. And the public reaction is, wow, like somebody finally did this thing. I've been wanting one of these for years. That's the real kick for us.
Yeah. Are you guys in any way ever tempted to take, because you're building up a roster here of some really great synths, are you ever tempted to do what other software instrument companies have been doing, and that's to bung them into a collection and let people acquire all the stuff in one package, or maybe even go down the subscription route? And I know that will have people that are going yay subscriptions or boo subscriptions, but is it something that you've considered, because you are building up this really big list of brilliant little tools and instruments? Is that on your radar?
We do actually have a package called the Synth Stack that contains everything that we did up through last Christmas, and this Christmas we will have a new version of the Synth Stack that will contain every instrument that we've made, and of course that package just keeps getting bigger and bigger as we keep doing more and more instruments. I'm not a big fan of subscriptions. I never have been. I don't like the idea of renting software, so I don't know about that. But then maybe there's a model that we can come up with that makes sense. We haven't talked a lot about it.
No.
I mean, how do you guys feel about subscriptions? Do you think that's become mainstream now? It seems like when they started out, people were very much against them. But is it becoming acceptable now?
I have a few. Sometimes it's for financial reasons, like I can't afford to spend £1,000 on a bunch of software, but the thought of spending £20 a month isn't as bad, and I can stop. So there is that aspect to it that I like, but I don't like the fact that you never own it. And that's what I liked about the Roland Cloud, where you got as time went on, you owned one of the items in the deal, kind of thing. That's not too bad, but renting is just a bit of a no full stop, isn't it?
I think it's one of I think it suits different people at different times, and I think that some companies have got it, really, they've done it really well, and some maybe not so much. I mean, if you look at the Roland Cloud, they do this thing. If you're an Ultimate subscriber, every year you can keep 2 permanently. You can cancel your subscription and keep all the ones that you've put aside, and those grow like 1 or 2 a year depending on your plan. So that's kind of cool, because eventually you will get to a point where you've got all the licenses, permanently for all the ones you want, and maybe you will stop subscribing. Then you look at UVI, who've only recently started doing it. Ben's got the subscription. I'm every day that goes by, I think, yeah, really, I should do that, because it's about the same price as Roland Cloud, or certainly Roland Cloud Ultimate, but the depth of content is incredible value. So in a way, you're getting really good value there. But then lots of people don't like subscriptions for the very fact that you are kind of renting software, and then what happens if the company goes bust, or they stop doing something, and or you just can't afford to keep paying? Have you now lost that instrument? And any project that you've got that uses that instrument you're going to have to go back and change things around, and it is a kind of a scary thought. There seems to be. I'm in both camps. I'll rent the stuff or subscribe to the stuff that I really want, which is mostly the Roland stuff. But others I'm not so sure about.
That Roland model, it bothers me a little bit, because that thing about giving you a product you can keep every year, it doesn't cost them anything to give you that product. You've already got it installed. It's just a number in their database. But they're doing that to keep you on the line. If you've already paid for 6 months, you might as well pay for another 6 months. At Cherry Audio, we've approached this from such a different angle. We try so hard to keep our prices low, extremely low from the beginning. Yeah. And we don't charge for updates. We don't charge for upgrades. We've always been coming at this from a different angle, that it feels like charging people a lot of money and then, keeping them on the hook for a subscription. It just rubs me the wrong way. Yeah, that's me personally. Like I say, I've never been a fan of subscription.
Yeah, it depends. I've got a subscription with Plugin Alliance, and they're pretty easygoing. It's a pretty nice plan. That you get. I feel like I get a pretty good value for the money with it, so I don't have a problem with it. There are other companies who've been around for a very long time, who I won't say the name of, who they are just doing what I refer to as just sort of a, as a shady subscription. And by that, I mean, you in theory own it, but to keep it going in any way, shape, or form, you have to pay them a certain toll per year. So they're just not being upfront about the fact that you're really doing a subscription anyway. So there's a couple companies like that. And, that just seems, it seems shady to me. It seems off. Yeah. And like Dan was saying, we don't really charge for upgrades. There isn't a toll every year to keep it going. When the M versions and M1 versions came out, here's your M1 version. So, however, with all that said, and we haven't really discussed it very much, but, when we had 5 products, none of this was really much of a conversation. Yeah. But I do think about when we have 25 synthesizers, or whatever it is we make, 25 titles, then, okay, well, how do we deal with this? And how do we deal with installers? And, do we need to have one of those installer apps that drive me nuts to handle everything? And it's a lot more to deal with. A lot of titles. It was easy for us when we were first started doing this, because we didn't have that many titles.
That's the one. If I had a wish list of anything from you guys, it would be something akin to. I'll use this purely as an example: the Arturia Software Control Center, where all of my Arturia products are in there, and whenever there's an update, I can see there's an update and just click on it, and it will update it and do all that for me. That would be super useful. But at the end of the day, like you said, you guys are charging. I mean, your full prices are $59, but most of the time they're $39. I can't expect, that kind of level of service for that price. I mean, you give us fantastic synths as it is, and I'm happy with that. But if there was just one little thing, I'd say, oh yeah, please, can we have that? It would just be some kind, because it's a big list of synths that's ever expanding. Every month or so there's something new to add to that collection. It would just be nice to be able to manage it.
We are entirely aware of that. As Mitchell said, it's growing pains. When we had 4 or 5 products, it wasn't that big of a deal. every once in a while we stop and kind of look at what we've done and go, wow, we have a lot of software now. And then the other part of it, and this is one of the tricky things about being a developer, while you guys are all playing with the Elka-X, when that comes out and you're having fun with it, we are already internally, we are a product or two down the line developing future products. It's such a, it's a long process to make one of these products. And so the end stage of a product is that we spend a month or two doing sound design, creating presets, creating the preset library. And while that's going on, we're working on developing the next synth.
Sure.
So we don't often stop and really think about what it's like for a new customer to come in and buy all of our products and then have to download and run a lot of installers. And we understand that we're probably at the point where we need a tool like that. I would expect next year we'll have some sort of plugin manager.
Fantastic.
And we're such nerds. We're such nerds that we just want to make a synth. Like, we're not thinking about,
we don't want to stop you doing that.
I love the Cherry installer. It has that like retro grid thing going on when you first log in, and that. If you do have a consolidated version, it's still got to keep those retro.
Got to keep those retro vibes.
Point taken.
Questions. There's one request in here. Ben can throw some questions in just a moment. One request from ASIO Head. Please do the Jupiter 6.
I've never heard of that. Surprising how often that one comes in. I
so much.
It's interesting to me because the Jupiter 6 always used to be sort of the ignored, child in the family of Jupiters. And I wonder why there's suddenly so much excitement around it.
Ken, have you got any insight into why the Jupiter 6 has suddenly because it has. Lots of people have been asking for it.
I have a theory. But Ken,
go. No, go on.
Because Jupiter 8s have gotten so far out of reach.
Yeah.
So expensive at this point. By the way, like 2 years ago, I passed up Greg Hawkes from the Cars, was auctioning his, and it was $12,000 it went for. Which at the time I was like, I ain't spending that. But now I'm like, damn it, I should have bought it. But I did get his vote. But anyway, I think it's kind of like the CS80. It's gotten so expensive. Like, what are they, like $40,000 now? So the 6, I don't know what 6s go for now, but they're a lot less. What are they, $6-7 grand now, kind of thing?
Yeah.
So it's still like kind of a flagship Jupiter Roland synth, but it's kind of in reach. I think that's why.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah, pretty much that. There is a sound difference between the two, but it isn't 20,000 quid different. For Christ's sake, I don't know what the hell's going on there. But yeah, it's a slightly kind of, it's a different approach as well. Mainly because of the way it's laid out and stuff like that. But yeah, it's always been sort of like the the poison cousin. It was never, it never gets invited to the nice parties or anything. It's just one of those keepers go, yeah, no, don't worry about it. Yeah, Jupiter 8.
Because it is quite different to the 8 sonically, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of played out differently. The voicing cards are different. In a very subtle way, not massively different, but I think it's just the way I don't know. It's just the way it's laid out. It's just slightly different.
Yeah,
it's like the evil brother of the Jupiter 8, isn't it? It's a
evil twin, the one that's kept in the attic.
Yeah, it's almost like at some point somewhere in the history, Jupiter 6 got drunk, threw up all over the dinner table, and hasn't been invited back again based on it, no matter how good he's been since. It's like that.
I think it's also the fact that the Jupiter 8 and even the Jupiter 4 to some degree have been so hyped up over the last however many years as being, that's the ultimate, especially the Jupiter 8, it's the ultimate analog polysynth. And now people are remembering that it did have a predecessor, and that predecessor is slightly different, looks slightly different, sounds slightly different, has a different kind of characteristic, and maybe it's just like, maybe we're a bit sort of, we've had enough of the Jupiter 8 now. There's so many plug-in versions that you can get, And if you are wealthy enough to own one, fantastic. But now we want something a little different. So maybe it is, but it's certainly one that keeps coming up. Not just to you guys, but to other instrument developers that we speak to. They're always being asked about, do a Jupiter 6. Arturia are being asked. Roland themselves are being asked. So it's definitely a popular one. Whoever comes up with the first one could make a killing.
Yeah, it's like when you get people saying about the MKS80, you go, oh yeah, because it's a Jupiter 8 in a box.
Right.
Don't ever say that again in front of me, you stupid person. It is not. Okay?
So you want to play the I bought one for this back then game? Want to play that? A Jupiter 6 750 mint. Kept it for like 2 years, sold it for $750.
No.
Yeah.
How much did you sell your Jupiter 8 for, Ben? Or did you sell one, or did you pass up on one?
I've never had a Jupiter 8.
But you almost
sold, I sold my JX10 with the PG 800 programmer for £300.
Oh.
And that's not so long ago.
So you probably won't want to hear about the fully restored JP8 we sold in, I think it was April this year. I didn't sell it, but I did the work. So it's repainted, re-silk screened, everything is done. And it's like you could eat your dinner off the power supply kind of scenario. And it's sold for £32,000.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I know. But the guy wanted it so bad. So bad.
A lot of money.
Actually, too bad. He should have been shot in the head, actually.
We've talked about this a lot. Like in Los Angeles, I lived in Los Angeles for like 25 years. I don't know anymore, but I lived there for like 25 years. And almost the whole time, you had this pre-Craigslist. You had, Recycler or whatever. And you could buy a Juno of any kind for $350 all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You could buy a Jupiter 6 for $750, and you could buy a Jupiter 8 for $1,200. Like those were the prices.
Yeah.
You could always find them for that. Always for like probably 10, 15 years.
Mm.
And then everything went insane. But for a long time, those were the going rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've just had a CS80 go out Wednesday, £30,000.
Wow.
And the one that's still down in the workshop's up for 52, I think. And
I have a
and it's
Jupiter
not as good as the one that went for 30. Shh, don't tell anybody that.
My Jupiter 6 I got in the late 90s, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't working. It had issues. It was broken, but I'm pretty sure I traded it for some boxes of software.
Hey!
Paid for it was.
That software is really valuable now.
But I've still got the one which when we do this kind of thing, because this comes up quite a lot anyway, and I sold a CS80 for £175, fully working.
Oh, ouch.
Okay,
gosh.
We should probably not stay on this because we can stay on this for a long time. But one final thing.
Go on then.
I bought my Pro 1, my sequential Pro 1, $30.
Yay!
Broken
You
fuse
win.
Holder. Broken fuse holder was the only issue. It was cosmetically nice. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
$30.
Okay,
Still got it.
Of course not. I sold it for $200 a minute.
Hey!
Oh dear! No, thankfully I don't sell that much, so I haven't got any horror stories of selling
anymore.
things. But I have bought some bargains. I must admit, I bought some bargains, so I can't complain. Anyway, so before we Ben, we've got a whole bunch of questions piling up. I just want to bring to the attention this one from American Badger. Thank you ever so much for your donation. But he has a really good question here. Have you guys considered doing a nightmare synth that would incorporate the very worst features of the very worst synths?
We already made the Quadra.
Oh.
But April 1st, April 1st
made,
would be a great release.
And we made the Polymoog. We did the Polymoog thing too.
Yeah.
Except we fixed all the stupid on that.
There you go.
Yeah, but the poly mode is wonderfully terrible. That's a
Oh,
different.
Polymoog's my favorite synth in the whole
Oh, I
wide
don't
world.
know.
It's right there.
What are the worst features?
But if you did the
worst-
poly mode, but you took all the bad stuff out, so what were you left with? An
mean,
on knob.
You'd have to have,
There you go.
you'd have to have keyboard contacts that are dirty and
Yeah.
double trigger and don't work. You
yeah.
have to have membrane switches that you have to push 4 times.
And that octave divider was working yesterday. What
Yeah,
happened?
like a whole octave of keys that doesn't work at random.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's one of those things like we think of all the time. It's like, it'd be too much work, but man, it would be so funny. It'd be the greatest thing.
Cool. Well, that's a really good idea. And thank you for the donation. Questions in the chat, Ben?
Yeah, there's a couple of quick ones. Waverley Instruments are asking voltage modular 3.
We have we're going to be releasing an update to Voltage Modular in the very near future, but it's definitely not going to be a 3.0.
Okay.
Let us know what features you'd like in a 3.0 because Voltage Modular 2.0 we're pretty happy with. It does everything that we ever really wanted it to do, but we're always open to new ideas.
If people do want to get in touch with you with ideas and suggestions, how is the best way to do that? Is there a link on the website, like should they go through support, or is there a contact?
We have forums on our website. There's a very active Facebook page. Our customer support, not to pat ourselves on the back, but it's got to be the best in the business. Our customer support guys get back to you within hours on weekends, evenings. They're fantastic. So we are very interactive with our customers, and they can contact our customer support. They can write on our forums. They can contact us on Facebook.
Yeah, it'll get to us regardless. We're not one of those like, you have to send it here or we won't look at it. Like,
Yeah,
That's
and
very
all of
commendable.
Yeah,
You didn't select the right pull down.
Yeah. Were you standing on one leg when you did it?
Yeah. So if you go to cherryaudio.com, the forums link is at the very top of the page. That's a good place to start.
Ros Gray has asked, is Dan the same Dan Goldstein as the one who wrote loads of great synth reviews and articles in the 80s? I wouldn't think you were old enough for that.
No, he's not. I was not old enough in the 80s. I've actually been once every 10 years or so. I get that question from someone. I think he was a British musician, maybe, possibly, or writer. I'm not sure.
Do you ever get anybody ever say to you, go, like, can you sell us one of those new Fender Rhodes Mark 8s?
That's my biggest mistake. I get Dan Goldstein and Dan Goldman mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I say, we must speak to Dan Goldman. I'm thinking of you, and then when I say, so I'm terrible for that. It gets worse with age as well. It's when you start calling relatives by the different names of other relatives. Like I'll call my son after my brother, or my brother after my son, or the best one was my mother-in-law used to call me the name of my wife's first husband. She'd always refer to me as Paul, and I just had to chuckle, but it upset my wife because she didn't like him. Which is
I had a teacher once. This is totally off topic, but I had a teacher who would accidentally call me Goldberg, and she did it over and over, and I asked her not to do it, and she said, "Okay, next time I do it, I will give you $1." That's what she said.
Wow.
And then one day we were in class, and she was showing a film, and I was talking to the guy next to me during the film. And she gets up in front of the class and she screams, "Dan Goldberg, be quiet!" And I made her give me $1.
Awesome.
She did.
Do you remember the show Petrocelli? 1970s kind of.
Yes.
Oh, show my age. So it was an American kind of procedural lawyer drama type thing, and the protagonist was a lawyer called Petrocelli. And in the opening credits of the show, every week he's building his house, and of course it's the same piece of film. So like over 3 or 4 seasons, he's still building his house. And I used to walk into my English classroom, and my English teacher used to think he was absolutely hilarious. He would say, "Hey, Petrocelli, have you finished building your house yet?" And I'd be like, "Oh God, here we go." So yes. Anyway, Ben, questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Alex Reed's question. I think what he's basically asking is there any more plans for things like Dreamsynth, like more completely original projects from the ground up, not an emulation?
What an interesting question.
That is a very interesting question.
So when we released Dreamsynth, that was a what we felt was kind of a risky product for us, because we had a customer base that loved buying vintage synthesizer emulations from us, and we did not know how they would feel about us doing an original synth, one that wasn't really based on a specific vintage synthesizer. We just didn't know, and we were a little worried. We put a lot of work into it. Dreamsynth has over 1,100 presets, and we spent a lot of money hiring sound designers to build these presets, and we just had no idea what was going to happen when we released it. And I think it's probably been the biggest surprise that Dreamsynth has been our most successful title that we've come up with, which I love, because I love that synth and I love the design of it, and Mitchell came up with so many clever ideas for that synth. And so it's been exciting for us to know that we can come up with new ideas for synths. And that is actually a great segue, if you want it to be, to the world premiere video.
Should we do that?
You have.
Yeah, I think we've kept them waiting an hour.
Yeah.
Should we do that? All right then, ladies and gentlemen. Cats and dogs, birds and bees, sit back and enjoy 40 seconds of a little tease. This is a world premiere, world exclusive, whatever you want to call it. This is what is coming next from Cherry Audio. Ooh.
It sounded very Doctor Who when it first came, very BBC Radiophonic Workshop when it first came in. It was
Lots of wavy things going on there. Ooh.
Now,
look,
exciting.
I need to tell everyone here, we don't know. Only these two guys know. We don't know. So we're in the dark as much as everyone else. So please don't email us or contact. We don't know. We've got to wait as well. So that sounds great. I forgot I was going to tell people to just mind their earphones or just turn their speakers down a little bit, because it was coming through really big. But that sounds amazing. I guess you can't tell us too much about it, but is there anything? Or are you just going to stay there and go, nope?
We can't really talk about it, not yet.
Okay, that's fair enough.
It is an original synth. It is a departure in a lot of ways. It's something, part of the fun of doing these instruments is we have a plan. We have a plan for what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. But that plan is not written in stone. It's not carved in stone. And every once in a while we get an idea or a project that we're excited about, and we just decide, you know what, let's change things up. So we were not going to do this next synth now. We had other things we were going to do, but we got so excited as we worked on the prototype of it, and as we experimented with a new idea for synthesis, we got so excited about it that we decided, let's just explore this and see where it goes. And that's about all I can really say about it. But it's been surprising to us how cool the sounds are that can come out of this.
Yeah. And there are a couple of questions in the chat. This is original. This is not an emulation of any pre-existing hardware synthesizer. This is along the same lines of Dreamsynth, as in it is completely original.
As far as we know, yeah. I mean,
Cool.
there have been a lot of synthesizers out there. So
This is true. This is true. There are only so many things you can do, I suppose.
But yeah, this is definitely not something that comes out of the 70s or 80s, and it's more of a departure from us. And I really hope our customers will embrace it. And it's a programmer's synth. If you like synthesis and the art of synthesis and the art of creating new sounds, we think you're going to love this one.
But it isn't hard to use.
No.
Like, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's because I think, Dan, I can talk about this kind of, sort of, in a general kind of way. Because a lot of, like, it's not hard to make it's not hard to make a synth that does a lot of stuff that makes unique sounds that's super complicated and super hard to use. I mean, there's a lot of those out there.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But if you know our products, I mean, it's certainly a departure in what it does and what it is, but it is not a departure in the what I like to call the everything in front of you all at once concept. That's just, part of what we do. We don't do a million tabs and a million hidden menus and itty bitty tiny things that you can't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are hardware guys. We like the experience of sitting in front of a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
And so we like soft synths that are approachable as if they were hardware. And yeah, I mean, I guess all I can really say about this synth is, as usual, we just didn't know how people would react to it, and we gave it out to our sound designers, and they just took to it immediately. We thought they'd have a lot of questions, but they didn't. They just dived in and started making some cool sounds with it. So we'll be able to talk about it soon.
Yeah.
And it's coming out in early October. It's
really soon.
Really
soon.
Well, yeah, so I noticed the date on there was October 6th, so I think once this is released, this is going on my laptop, and we're going to go up to Synthfest, and that'll be my bedroom time occupied during the evenings after I've walked the halls. So fantastic stuff. Can't wait. Really good.
Yeah.
Right. Any more questions? If anybody's joined, we'll play that again towards the end of the show. In case anybody's joined late, we'll play that one more time. But yeah, any more questions, Ben?
Just let me have a look. This is from Synth Addict. Have the Cherry Audio guys considered a plug-out synth like the System 8, but more slots to have some portable and/or doorless fun?
Oh, like Mitchell said earlier, we just haven't given any serious thought to hardware. I mean, what was it this week? Another Eurorack modular manufacturer announced they were closing. It's just not a good time to get into the hardware market, and that is not in our plans.
But
now,
let's say COVID didn't happen, pandemic didn't happen, all that kind. If the world was how it was, say 3 or 4 years ago, but had advanced without all those problems, would it be something that you'd consider doing? Are you solely dedicated to software?
Again, we're hardware guys. We love hardware. I would love. I mean, I've always loved the idea of taking something like our memory mode synth and building it into a hardware controller, so that, because I love the sound of that thing. I just love the experience of playing a Memorymoog. I'd love to do that if it were a different world, maybe. Sure. I mean, we're totally open to it. And, maybe at some point we'll partner with a hardware company. Maybe there'll be a good opportunity for, for a partnership. But we'd rather just keep making cool synths. And
you might not want to go down that road, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, and also it's, for lack of a better way of putting it, hi.
Hi there.
It's a lot easier to make software synths like we do because, I mean, it's not easy, but in the sense of, you see how fast we can do these. Now, we put something out roughly every 3 months or so, Dan. To make a giant hardware poly synth, it's probably years to do that. Because there's just so many other things to consider. I always have that joke about doing the front panel. You got to worry about what's behind it. Like when I do modular stuff, like is the pop bumping into something? But I mean, that's kind of a joke, but there are just so many other things to worry about. And that's kind of the beauty of what we do, is we can just keep moving and moving and moving. because doing things in software just removes so many of the constraints of making hardware. So
yeah, it's easy to sell, and we don't have to ship. We don't need a warehouse where we're shipping units around the world and then repairing them when they break. And we can push updates out instantly. You don't have firmware updates and things like that. So I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. But
if an instrument doesn't sell that good,
fun doing what we're doing that we don't want to stop.
If it doesn't sell good, we don't go out of business. That's that one too, because it's $4,000 a unit, and we have a warehouse full of them. Oops.
Very good point. What else we got in the pot there?
Software as well. Dr. Akins asked, how about a soft synth of the Yamaha CS40M?
Oh wow, that's an obscure one.
Dan?
I used to own one of those, and I sold it to my friend Parker, and then he moved far away.
Yeah, it's duophonic, right, Dan?
It is. It's duophonic.
I think I don't. That's a weird one to do because you're either gonna. I'm just talking off my head, but I think you're either gonna do a little mono, tiny CS10-ish, CS15-ish thing, or you're gonna do a big CS huge. But to do the CS40 seems like a kind of weird choice. We couldn't put out a duophonic synth without somebody killing us. People would freak out. They're like, how come I can only play two notes? So
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I don't know. One of the funnest things about this job is just the requests that we get from people. Everyone has their pet synth, their synth that they would love, and some of them are terrible ideas from a marketing point of view, things that we could never sell, things that no one would ever want to buy, but people love them. They mean so much to people, and so it's always interesting to see the requests. We have to balance. It's another one of these weird balances where we have to balance the synths that we personally love with the question of what can we sell. What are people going to buy if we do things that are so weird and esoteric that no one's ever heard of them? Then are people going to know that they want to buy this, that they'd be interested in owning it, or is it just too out there? And a lot of us, Mitchell and I and James, our sound designer, we love our weird rare synths. They're things that we personally love to collect, but not everything that we love is necessarily a product that people would buy. So, we keep trying things. We have some weird products planned for next year. I can tell you that next year we're going to make some things that are going to surprise people.
Cool.
Things that they would not have expected to see as soft synths, but that we love and that we just want to do, and we'll see if anyone wants to buy them. I guess we'll find out.
I was going to ask one of the moderators to ban Dr. Mike Metley for suggesting the Timber Wolf. But
great example, right?
He then balances that with, say, do everything in my book, Synth Gems 1, of course, available in all good bookstores and some bad ones as well.
I own that book, and it is wonderful. Absolutely.
Don't
wonderful.
tell him that.
You never hear it now.
No,
everyone.
Hopefully, Dr. Mike will be joining us next week to regale us with his tales of NobCon, which just finished last weekend. So,
people should buy that book just to read up on the GX1, the Yamaha DX1. The section is full of great information.
It is. Yeah. Sad to say. Never mind. No, so it's a great book. And of course, the other thing that Mike will hopefully be telling us about next week is the new Roland book, which apparently has just gone to the presses. So we'll get some inside skinny on that one. Questions. Anything else?
There was one from Wagyu earlier.
Oh, yes.
He even paid 10 chucks.
He even paid cash for questions.
Cash for questions.
Could you tell us which bits of Elka-X you had to use circuit modelling on to get accurate?
Can we tell you that? I don't know. We developed that product over the course of 6 or 7 months, and we are 2 products ahead of that right now in our development. So I would have to think about that. I don't know. The whole notion of circuit modeling in general is something that it's a bit of nonsense when it comes to talking about software. There are a lot of buzzwords, and one of them is circuit modeling, and nobody is doing, and I mean nobody is doing, component level modeling, no matter what they tell you, because it's just a terrible way to make software. And the problem is, if you were to do component level modeling and it doesn't sound right, then what do? You're sort of stuck. There's not much you can do. So circuit modeling is a more accurate term for what we do in software, but even that is one of these pseudo meaningless terms, like low calorie. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. What we largely do is what my friend Mark calls terminal synthesis, which is we look at the output of the machine and we make it do that. So whether it's doing, whether the specific transistors and capacitors and resistors are modeled, that's meaningless. What matters is, does it sound like the original hardware? And does it perform and behave the way the original hardware behaves? And that's what we focus on. And we use whatever tools we need to use to make it as accurate as possible.
Cool. Good answer. What else have we got in the pot?
I've just realised that one's still there. DT Scape asks, is there any chance of improving the CPU usage on the current synths?
That's something that we're always trying to do. What I can say is that we've actually improved a number of our effects algorithms, and we will be rolling out updates to all of our existing synths over the next few months for a number of reasons. One of them is CPU improvements. One of them is compatibility with this forthcoming Mac OS operating system that's in beta. Mm-hmm. And Apple keeps breaking our products, so we keep having to, it's sort of a constant, I mean, this is every company, but it's, we're constantly having to update our software to make it compatible with whatever Apple's decided to change. So we do have updates coming to pretty much everything, and they will include CPU improvements as well.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, I think we've probably quizzed you guys plenty about yourself. We will, let me just switch my camera, there we go. We will be playing that trailer for everyone, so if you missed the world exclusive, there'll be a second world exclusive. It won't be so exclusive because it'll be the second one, but we'll play it again towards the end of the show, so if you missed that or you just want to see it again and get all excited like we are, please do. Saying that, we've just had a couple of questions come in, so let's get those out of the way, and then there's a few little news topics that we can discuss. But what have we got there, Ben?
Well, our friend Adamski asks, would you consider going into GPU process synths? Oh, this is a new thing, isn't it, using GPU processing?
Yeah, I believe that the guys that are working on that actually have invited us to experiment with it. It's my understanding that technology is not really developed and all the way yet, and I don't think it's compatible with my development system that I have here. So I haven't explored that yet, but it's really promising. It's really interesting technology, and I think we'll probably be seeing a lot of that. Yeah, we're definitely open to it.
Cool. Because if anybody is interested in GPU audio, that's the company that are exploring this. Dominic, Mr. Wiggly in the chat, just the other day had an interview with a couple of the guys and went into some really great detail about how it works and what's going on there. So do go and watch that. And I think off the back of that, I think Dominic, and I have to thank you for this publicly, I think you maybe you put them in touch with us, because I got an email the other day saying we'd love to come on the show to talk about it. So we've got those guys booked, I believe, October 14th. So we'll have the GPU audio guys on here as well to tell us all about using that technology, which currently I think is Windows only, but they are working on Mac versions of it to use the whole GPU as a processor, and that will help obviously run more powerful synths, lots more powerful synths, I think. Anyway, so we've also got a couple of other guest announcements, well, at least one other guest announcement to give you very shortly, but we'll save that for later. Don't want to give you all the good stuff. Dom has confirmed that he did put us wrong one. There we go. He did put us in touch with those, so thank you very much. Inter-channel cooperation, can't beat it.
Great.
So yeah, October 14th if you want to watch those. And of course, Mr. Wiggly is the YouTube channel. We can go, and of course, Mr. Wiggly does his regular Sunday shows. I forget the name; it was in my head. It's gone again. But we go and check out Mr. Wiggly's show. You'll find out. I'm sure he'll put it in the chat who's coming on the show this week. Right, and there was a question from Dom. Any chance of hearing your own back-to-back comparisons of your? I'm hoping I've interpreted this correctly. Of your emulations with some hardware, because that seems to be things that are popular on the internet, where people do sort of like, listen to this and listen to this. And is that something you'd ever do? Or
we have done that. We've put out videos. Mitchell's made some videos like that, and we've kind of. I don't know, maybe you want to speak to this, Mitchell, but we've kind of decided that there's just limited returns to doing that, because there are two things that people listen for. People think they're listening for whether the two synths sound identical, but really what they're listening for is whether the two patches sound identical.
Mm.
And often exactly matching a patch from a piece of hardware to a piece of software, it's a time-consuming process. And if one of them is a little brighter or the envelope's a little longer, then they just won't sound exactly the same. But what we did months ago was we released what we called the Cherry Audio Challenge, where we created this blind test, and I think you guys participated in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people could hear. We had a whole bunch of recordings of a Memorymoog and a whole bunch of recordings of our Miniverse Memorymoog emulation plugin, and what we found was that mathematically speaking, nobody could tell them apart. It was a dead 50-50 split. Mm-hmm. It was basically pure guesswork. So we sort of feel like we've kind of made the point that these days it's extremely difficult to tell software apart from hardware. Mm-hmm. And we feel like we've kind of made that point. We don't need to press it. I don't know. What do you think, Mitchell? Any comments on that?
So I have some semi-extreme opinions on this stuff, having done these kinds of things with a couple of our instruments. One, it tends to, just by the nature of what it is, be something of a troll magnet, and which is sort of off-putting. Also, I have a running joke with Dan that I want to take like a Memorymoog or something and do an A/B test and use the real instrument for both, and then watch everybody go, it sounds thin and like crap. It sounds like a plug-in. Like, I just see a lot of that. And so, yeah, and it kind of doesn't necessarily prove too much and garners a lot of negative attention. And I hope that doesn't sound like we're backing down, like we're like not confident in our stuff, because we are. It sounds great. And the other thing is it attracts a lot of, I think we've talked about this in the past, you guys probably don't even have one, or you've never played one, or the blah, blah, blah that I had in 1986, I don't remember it sounding that way. And and it doesn't occur to people that we're literally sitting here like with two instruments going wah, 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 back and forth for hours and hours and hours. And like, I always want to write, but I don't. I have one sitting right here that I'm listening to right now.
Honestly, that's one of the weirdest comments that we sometimes see is we'll put out something like the Quadra, and someone will comment and say, well, I played a Quadra in 1983 and I don't remember it sounding quite like this. And I mean, what do you say to that? We have a Quadra in our studio, and we spend months doing extremely critical listening to get these things sounding exactly right, but it doesn't sound like what someone remembers it sounding like 40 years ago.
Yeah,
you can't compete with that. No. So I mean, we put so much effort goes into getting the sounds of these things to be extremely accurate. but it is sort of a diminishing. There's diminishing returns when it comes to trying to prove to people. People will there are trolls out there, and some people will hear what they want to hear, and that's why we did the blind test, and that we learned a lot from that. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of recent examples. I know Mark Doty did some comparisons where he got a Memorymoog and then he compared them with other synthesizers, but he didn't tell you what they were, and he said, I'm going to play the same phrase on a Memorymoog and then I'm going to play it on synthesizer X.
And that video was called "You Can Tell Them Apart." Right?
Yeah,
you can tell a Memorymoog apart, and he found out that actually not. Yeah, and then of course there was the classic from Dave Spears when he was beginning to promote OBE from GeForce Software, where he did this whole thing about the Oberheim 8 voice, but what we were hearing was the software, but we didn't know at the time, and everyone was going, oh man, that sounds amazing, and of course all the time it was his plugin, or their plugin, should I say.
It's kind of what I was paying to do.
I wanted to give him such a high five for that video, because if I remember correctly, that video was a half-hour long.
Yeah. And
at the very, very end of that video, he says, oh, by the way, none of the sounds you've heard are actually from the 8 voice. And only if you watch the entire video did you find that out.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, another thing we would run into when doing those kinds of A/B tests is, especially with the instruments that people are less likely to have, like the 8 voice or whatever, or Quadra, like things that aren't, a lot of people don't have, is we find people comparing our stuff to, it doesn't sound good as so-and-so's emulation of so-and-so. And, we always want to say, well, we didn't make an emulation of somebody else's emulation. We made it the real thing. And there are cases where I think ours is more accurate. Regardless of whether you like how that sounds, ours is more accurate to the real thing. So it's just, again, there's so many can of worms scenarios that arise from that it can be tough.
Yeah. Do you know what the bottom line? Do you know what the bottom line on this actually is? And you never hear anybody say it on these videos, but all the hardware sounds different from each other.
Yes.
I can give you 5 Memorymoog and none of them sound the same.
Right.
Or even Polymoogs. The 8 voice, I must admit, I knew he was using the emulation, because when I restored his 8 voice, there was one sem where the filter wandered, and when he was playing it, the filter wasn't wandering, and went, that's not the 8 voice. And of course when he says at the end, and I'm going, oh, vindication. So, but yeah, I mean, this is the thing now, because this is going to be a problem for you, I suppose, anyway, because when you emulate, you've got say you've got a Quadra, and you emulate that Quadra, your plugin is an emulation of that Quadra.
That's right.
Yeah. So when Arturia or somebody else does one or something like that, it will be whatever Quadra they had as well. So if there's slight differences, it'll also be, and it's just a one of these things. But we'll get to the point where people go, oh, I like that emulation of that Quadra better than that emulation of that Quadra, so I'll have that Quadra because I like that one, appeals to me for some what subliminal level or something like that. But you can there's emulations that you hear where you go, did they own the hardware to this? It's I'm not hearing it. And then others where you go, yeah, super dupe. So when they do this comparison thing, oh man, it's just putting 2 cats in a box and going,
yeah,
and see what happens.
When we created Mercury 4, which was our Jupiter 4 emulation, we were very fortunate that we actually had 3 Jupiter 4s. I have one, Mitchell has one, James had one, and all 3 of them were very different. They were calibrated differently. They sounded different. Mitchell's triangle wave was way off of calibration, so it had this weird kind of shark tooth shape to it. And so, we had to make some judgment calls. We had to take what we felt was the best of the 3 of them and use that for our model. And I think I mentioned this the last time we were on your show. we learned that there are actually two different versions of the Jupiter 4 with two different filters in it. And my Jupiter 4 and Mitchell's Jupiter 4 had different filters in it. So we were trying to find out why Mitchell was able to get certain laser zap sounds that mine couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And it turned out that his had a more aggressive filter.
Yeah, you'd never know it, but my Jupiter 4 had, or Jupiter 4s like mine, have incredible sub bass. And like if you do like, filter res zap kind of things, you would never guess that synth, but it had so much low end. It was so fat sounding. If you ever want to make a kick drum on a Jupiter 4.
Yeah.
So absolutely, you are modeling the synth that you have, and these are 40, 50-year-old synths with, that may or may not be calibrated and that have age components, and any two vintage synth may not sound the same. So as we say, it's sort of a losing battle, and instead we just, we like to stress just the work and the time and the effort that goes into getting these models right. It's, again, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I've been in this industry a long time, and I think that one of the worst things about our industry is the words that we use to talk about sound. We use words like warmth and transparency and coldness and clarity and things like that to describe sound. And so it's amazing that one person will play our synth and talk about how warm and analog sounding it is, and then the next comment will say it sounds cold and digital. And how do you quantify that? How do you react to that?
Good point. Difficult. Good point. Couple more questions, and then we've got 2 or 3 news topics. So actually, I'll throw this one in because I know I think he seems to ask this every time. But of course, Dr. Mike Metley is also a big iOS musician. Any progress in or any thoughts about moving across to iOS? Because I've just got an M1 Mac, and of course, I've now got these Moog instruments that were originally iOS that are now running on here. So there seems to be a trend now for building iOS apps and then have them running on Mac. Is there something, have you ever thought about developing maybe one instrument that can straddle the 2 platforms?
You asked, we had the same conversation last time, and I don't think anything's changed. I mean, I'm just not sure we're convinced that there's a market there. And I understand, that there are people out there that buy it, but again, it's, if we are working on that, if we're working on an iOS version, then we're not working on our next synth.
True. And
we would rather be working on the next synth, unless there's a big enough market of people that are paying for iOS instruments that we can afford to do it. And as of now, I guess we haven't been convinced, but we haven't closed the door to that. We're certainly open to it. Cool. It's weird, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I remember when the iPad came out and everyone had an iPad, and I remember, you'd go on a plane and people would be reading books on them, and I remember going to the NAMM show and one guy had his iPad as a camera, so he was walking around with his big iPad taking pictures. I haven't seen an iPad in years.
It's one right there, Dan. One over there, right there.
Yeah, what do you use it for? Lyrics?
Honestly, it's funny you mentioned that. For somebody who's like an Apple guy, I very much have this attitude that Apple and a lot of companies are trying to sell you the exact same device in many, many different shapes. Your TV, your computer, your laptop, your phone, your iPad are all the same device with different size displays. So I resisted buying an iPad for a very long time because I thought they were just trying to resell me something I already have. But I eventually bought it because for 2 reasons. For doing band stuff, for live band lyrics, it's awesome if you're singing live or need charts. And I bought it because I use it for a remote control for Logic. I'm pointing there where I sing. It's a great remote control for Logic and things like that, or editor librarians for keyboards. But I pretty much, for plugins, but I don't use it for anything else. Nothing.
Yeah, our friend Jim Danica, who is a professional keyboard player and musical director, he uses the iPad with TouchOS C to control his main stage on his MacBook, so he has that sort of position, so he can just very quickly do stuff. I mean, I like yourself. I got the first iPad, and then I inherited a third or fourth generation one. I think it was the last one with the 30-pin connector. But I got really excited about the prospect of iOS and synthesizers, and bought I bought a couple of the Korg ones and a few others, and then as the iPad developed, the dock that I'd bought became obsolete because they'd gone to the Lightning connector, and the apps needed updating, and I needed a better iPad to run. And I just got, well, I'm doing that with a Mac as it is with a desktop computer. I can't afford to keep updating an iPad as well as this, so I just kind of fell out of love with it all. But I know that there are people that are, the iOS iPad music community is a pretty thriving one. But I was just interested, when I saw that, I thought, we'll ask it again, because there is this shift now from, having iOS instruments like, the Moog stuff that are now being made universal because they can run on, sort of present day Macs. And I've been having a whale of a time with, Animoog and Model 15 and all that on my Mac, which I hadn't had I had them on the iPhone, but of course that's far too small. So.
I don't know how people are using those. I mean, I always wonder how people use this stuff on tablets, because unless they're running GarageBand or something, or they're just playing it kind of standalone with a controller. Personally, like, I've been a Logic user since 1978, and since 95. So I'm spoiled by having the power of Logic and a zillion instruments. So I'm just used to having that. So it seems very limited on a tablet.
Yeah.
Right.
Ben, there was a question about clap.
Oh, was it?
Wasn't me.
Have you been contacted by Yuhi about clap? I don't know what you and Yuhi have been getting.
We had a
up
while
to,
with them at one point, and we're trying to forget it. And terrible.
Okay.
I don't know how to feel about clap personally. I mean, if it becomes supported by DAWs, we'll absolutely, we will make clap versions of our products. But I was just, when the news came out about it, my first reaction was, why do we need another plugin format? And I don't know. I mean, I guess there's some good advantages to it. I just don't know. What they are.
Is the idea to potentially just come up with one format for everything? Do you think that's what
that's what we need? Every product we make, there's VST, there's VST3, there's audio units, there's the Pro Tools plugin, the AAX version, there's the standalone. And we have to support all these. And so, I mean, I understand, as developers, it's not that exciting to think, another format that we have to support. It's the wrong direction, the industry should all be going behind one format. And it seemed for a long time like VST had won. Like, that was the winner that everyone was going to. A long time ago, there was on Windows, there was DirectX. And on Mac, there was the audio unit, and then the VST sort of dominated all that, and DirectX went away as a plugin format, but audio unit never did on the Mac. And then there was the VST3, and of course Pro Tools with their own format. So I don't know. If clap is the future, then that's great, because it would sure be nice if the industry could just agree on one format.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of work in the different formats? It's to convert a VST into an AU format, or is it just a box that it goes in at the end of the process?
These days there isn't a lot of work. For a long time, VST3 had some weird limitations. And so there were certain MIDI features that just didn't work right in VST3s. But these days, it's all pretty much that's not much of a challenge. And again, that's why it's sort of like, okay, a new format with new challenges, and how long is it going to take for every DAW to support it and not crash? I mean, I'm sure you remember the days where plugins would work in some DAWs but not other DAWs, and they would crash certain DAWs if you pushed the wrong button.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've come a long way with that, and most DAWs are really stable with plugins these days.
Yeah.
But a new format means new challenges.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
There we go. Right, okay. We've got about 25 minutes or so left, which is pretty good, actually. We've had a really great conversation. Thank you, gentlemen, for all of that input and great information. I'm sure the guys and girls watching will all appreciate that. We have just a few news topics, really, so it's good that we've kind of only got a short space left. But I guess the one big piece of news this week is something that has been hotly anticipated for a while and has been announced. It is available for pre-order now, and I'm going to play the launch video, shall we say. Here we go. Here it comes. He says, "Where's my button?" There it is. There we go. This is the Korg Drumlogue hybrid drum machine, available to pre-order now. I think it's 529 UK pounds, and looking at the current exchange rate, it's probably going to be similar in US dollars, because the pound has just dropped to its weakest level for 37 years. Yay, Brexit! Sorry, a little bit of politics there. So yeah, the Drum Brute has been spoken about for some while. Lots of people have been, they announced it, and they're sort of, but yeah, it should be here by the end of the year, according to our resident Korg distributor in the room. No, that's not you, Cresshead. It's Ian Cole, who is a Korg retailer here in the UK, says it should be here, or might be here for Christmas. So fingers crossed. Apparently, US is $599, so maybe we're getting a better deal here. But Drumlogue, guys, it's finally here. It sounds incredible. It's got all sorts of capabilities. There's a synth in there called Nano, which has been programmed by Sign Vibes, who we know for doing a lot of these wonderful Korg log products, for the NTS and all the other stuff. Do we need a drum machine like this? Is this something that whets your palate? Shall we go to Ben first? I think he's chomping at the bit.
I just had a gag that I wanted to use. It's very much the Drumlogue rhythm, isn't it? It's very similar to the analog rhythm from the Electron in a lot of ways, I thought. Yeah. I like it, though. And one criticism I had of the Electron machine was its quirky interface. And from what I can gather, Korg, there's quite a fair bit of menu diving, but it is quite intuitive to use. And like you said yourself, Robbie, it sounds great. I think... I've been after a drum machine for a long time. It was something that I meant to ask the Cherry Audio guys, is would they ever consider, like other instruments like drum machines, or virtualizing them. But I've never really found the right drum machine for me, so I might actually give this one a go and try it out. If Korg wants to send me one, I'm quite happy.
Yeah, we'll happily take one in here for review. So if Korg want Ben's address, we'll happily provide it. So it's this hybrid drum machine that it looks nice and compact. or maybe some people say it'd be a bit too small, but you've got separate controls for each of those elements there, the kick, the snare, the tom, the hi-hats, the clap, and your samples as well. It kind of has that traditional it almost looks, in a way, it looks like somebody's taken an 808, because it's got all these little tuning knobs. They look very 808 style, don't they? Yeah. But it looks like a really nice thing, and I'd say it sounds great. As an avid hardware collector, Dan, can you see one of these in your future?
I am a big fan of Korg. I love what they do. I got into synths back in the days of the Korg M1, and I just feel like Korg has been on a multi-decade roll for a long time. I love the demo audio. I love the glitchy modern sound. I love that that's what they went for. So I'd certainly love to play with it. For a long time, I wasn't interested in drum machines, and then I got this Lin drum that I have back here. Oh. And it was the first drum machine that really kind of changed my mind about drum machines, and I realized how fun they can be. So I'm kind of the opinion that a drum machine can be a whole lot of fun if it isn't too confusing to program. If it has that kind of immediate response and is a lot of fun instantly, then I think they'll have a winner.
Yeah. How about you, Kent? Does that turn you on at all?
Funnily enough, yeah. Actually, I was thinking about, seeing as Ian's in the chat, pre-order one for me. There's a darling.
There you go, Ian. First bit of business for you.
Yeah, and let me know when it's ready. Yeah,
delivery included.
Yeah, I was kind of like Ben. I was skirting around the outside, edges, going, yeah, a modern drum machine, that wouldn't, because I keep getting drum machines where they're supposed to sound like they were made in 1952, and I've had enough of that now.
Yeah.
And I want something a little bit more punchy, you know what I'm saying? But it's always the same. This is my little bugbear, okay? You get these promotional videos, and it's doing lots of stuff and everything like that, and it's not really showing you how it works. It's not very realistic to how, when you're there and you're actually using it. Because the guy, like in that particular advert there, the guy looks he's trying to build an Airfix Airfix kit of a Wellington bomber before it blows up in his face or something. Because it's like hands going. And I go, mate, that's not showing me how that works. Really, I'm not. Whatever. I mean, but it sounds great. So I'm going, yeah. Sod it, I'll have one then.
Yeah. It's got. Let me just bring this back up onto the screen. Sorry, wrong thing. It's got multiple outputs, but it hasn't got like a full complement of multiple outputs, and that's something that's often levelled at these kind of smaller drum machines. That it doesn't have an output per voice, so you then can't throw it into a mixer per channel, so to speak. So let me just bring this in here. Well, so good. you've got six individual outputs there. So that's kick, snare, hat, sample, clap, and there was, I can't remember what the other things were. So they're all there. But it's got MIDI in out, sync in out for connections to other external gear, of course. A digital audio workstation, but it looks like a nice kind of compact thing. I think the thing that the people were getting concerned because Korg had spoken about it for some while and nothing had come along, and we're thinking, is this going to be a victim of the chip shortage / chip prices kind of thing? But they've come to market with it at what seems to be a reasonable price. Mr. Wigley said it's a little bit too close in price to the TR8S, which I have not tried, but I hear lots of good things about. But there are some interesting drum machines coming out, and I love drum machines. I think they're great fun.
I think 6 outputs is enough, really, because you group a lot of sounds together, wouldn't you?
True.
As long as you can do a stereo group on some of them. I think as long as you've got your kick and snare separate, you can group everything else.
Yeah. I love the fact that my RX5 has got outputs for everything. Yeah. Not that I ever use them, but I know that if I wanted to, I could just individually output the bits that I want. I like to have the option, shouldn't we say?
Yeah.
But I wonder though, has anyone ever really made a successful drum machine synth hybrid? Because I feel like there's a lot of the Lin 9000 back in the day, and And ever since, there have been a lot of attempts. Sequential had some things they tried. There have been attempts to make hybrid drum machine synths that they always kind of fail as a drum machine and fail as a synth, or mostly just fail as a synth with no keyboard and not really the right controls that you need. So I wonder if this will...
Well, Korg have had a history, haven't they, with the elect drives that were kind of... And I suppose, MPCs are... Certainly the MPCs of today, where they're kind of like small computers with lots of kind of software instruments and the whole, sequencing and drum. So... there's some interesting ones out there. But there you go. Korg Drumlogue lives. It's available, and according to our insider, should be available by the end of the year, and can be pre-ordered right now. And Kent has just literally done that with the power of the internet.
Yes.
What other news have we got? Oh, this was an intro. This was a very last minute one, so I apologise because the guys here don't really. I kind of told them about it before we came on air, so I'll kind of take the lead on this one maybe. But I noticed this. This is a new MIDI host, I guess. It's called the Knot. It's from a company called Intech Studio, and it's kind of being designed and marketed to connect old school MIDI gear, as they call it, without the need for having a computer in the way. So it's got a USB host connection, and then you've got, let me just scroll this down because it will show you the ports. So you've got 3.5mm TRS MIDI in and out. You've got USB-C. You've got the polarity switch A and B, because nobody can make their minds up which one they want to use. And then there's the USB host connection there as well. So this basically is kind of a MIDI hub for those people that don't want to use a computer controlled thing. It's going to retail for $89. That's currently on pre-order, and expected dispatch will be around the 12th of December. So I'm not one of these doorless jammers or people that do stuff. I mean, we've got Jim Glue in the audience who did a fantastic EMOM last night in Derby. Well done for that one. But would this appeal to anyone from a performance perspective, using equipment without having a computer in the way?
I've got to be totally honest. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I know it's a hub, but is this something that you would plug into your MPC, say for instance, to give you more? How would you use this? Like, how would it integrate?
So if you've got a USB MIDI device, so there are some things that just only have USB MIDI. Right. You can use this to then control other MIDI gear through. Obviously, this is using 3.5mm, so you'd have to use adapters of some sort. I guess. But it's that kind of tool, I guess, for someone who's just using USB, like a USB MIDI controller, that can then connect up to older gear or so on. So
sounds like a lot of hassle. Not for me.
No. No. I thought, because the guys at CME, and we haven't said WIDI for a long, long time, so there you go, everybody take a drink. But they're about to launch something very similar, but also has Bluetooth control. So you can connect hardware MIDI, traditional 5-pin hardware MIDI, with USB and Bluetooth in one convenient. It probably is
convincingly convenient.
Convincingly convenient little blue box, and I do believe it is around the same price, maybe a little less. But there's clearly a call for this stuff, because the whole doorless jamming thing is blowing up, and
it's one of them things, isn't it? I can't comment on it because I'm not in that situation. This might be an absolute godsend to somebody who's using that equipment, thinking this is the best thing that anybody's ever made. But I just don't. I only make music at the computer these days. I don't really go for it anywhere else.
So they make this other thing called the Grid, which is that's plug-in, snap-together controllers, and they've built this as a companion to this, but also selling it as you don't have to have this, but it will help with this. So they're kind of making something to help with it. But these are all USB controllers, and there is a kind of growing trend now to leave off traditional USB, or maybe just have TRS jacks or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Interesting having a photograph of it plugged into a computer.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is the controller. That's the controller,
Right.
rather than the USB thing. And I guess they're
It's
saying
supposed
that
to work with that other thing as well.
with that box, you can connect these directly to other hardware pieces of gear without the computer in the middle. Cherry Audio gentlemen, any comments on this one, or can you see this being something in your setups?
I think I'm kind of with Ben in that, like, the whole, and again, I may get lambasted for this, but the whole DAWless jam thing, it just seems to be a more principle thing than anything else. Like, I'm not going to use a computer and I'm making a statement. And this is coming from a Mainstage guy. I've used Mainstage. It's been pretty much my only live keyboard, quote unquote, since it came out. So, and I'm the guy who laughs at guys with workstations on stage. So, like, this is $30 and does more than your thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not my dog, so I was making sure.
No, that's Kent's.
Yeah,
Okay.
my bloody my lots are off. Yeah.
So, I look at it like, well, I can just take my laptop and Mainstage and do anything all this stuff does. But that said, there are a lot of people who want to use a bunch of hardware boxes. And yeah, I'm sure it's absolutely got a place for those guys.
Yeah.
And those little standalone snap together controllers. I had that idea like a decade ago, which I'm sure a lot of people have. Like, somebody should make something like this where you can just stick together a bunch of little Lego pieces of. So I'm sure there's certainly an audience for it. I think it's not necessarily any of us, but these are cool products of an audience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those. Let me just get my cursor over here. So, the box itself, the one we've talked about, the knot, which I guess because it ties everything together.
Ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's $89. These little controllers, I've seen some of these made by companies that are charging way more than this, and you get 16 potentiometers for 129. The fader one is 130, and these aren't horribly expensive.
No.
And I kind of like that concept where you can buy what you need, and then they all kind of snap together and work as a single customized unit. I like that idea a lot, but I wasn't aware of Intech Studio until I saw this piece about the knot, and there you go.
Yeah, I must admit, I like with those snap together ones, because I had that French company one, and then they dropped the support for the controller, and you had to rebuy another controller to work with them. To which I said, and it was left pretty much like that. So I go, ooh. Yeah, because a few of them, beside the Rolly and stuff like that.
Yes. Well, you often see there's a Spitfire Audio demos where they've got. I can't remember. It's the quite expensive. Was that the one that you had?
Yeah.
They did. Like there's one. There's one rotary knob on one, and then one that's got some big fat faders on. Yeah. And I looked at the price of those, and I could buy a decent synthesizer for the cost of those.
Yeah. Well, Ty said to me, he says, "Oh, you got to get them because you get the control and everything."
Yes, it looks. Yeah.
And then they dropped the support for the controller, and you had to rebuy it again. I'm going.
That's no good.
No, I'm not. Yeah. Sorry, I'd rather do without.
Yeah. Ah, well. So there you go. That's not. It's available for $89 at the moment. It's normally $119. There's 27 of the first 50 reserved already. So if you want to get in for the first 50 before the 12th of December with that 25% discount, you go to intech.studio is the link for that one. Right, couple of quickies before we wrap up the show. And we will be playing that trailer just a moment's time. So this one is, I'm just being a bit self-indulgent here. So this is the new Revision 2 memory cards for DX1, DX5, DX7, DX7 Mark II, TX802, DX11, RX7, RX5 and Roland D50. The company is called Hypersynth. I'm a big user of these guys' products, so I can highly recommend them. But they've done a second revision of them, and they look a little something like this, and they do look rather lovely. This is Mad Fame, by the way. He's a great YouTuber.
Hey everyone, this is Rob
FM
from
stuff.
Mad Fame, and after much success, Hypersynth, the creators behind the popular HCard series, introduced the new Rev 2 design.
Ooh, it's cold. So these hold a huge amount of stuff. I mean, you see there, 12,800 presets, CNC metal case, scratch-free, new microprocessor, uses less power, just drops into the original slot, and then allows you to store, recall at the touch of a button. So we'll stop that there. The carts are available to buy now. They are $199 each for the one you saw there, which was for the DX7. There is a pair that they do for the DX1 and DX5. They're kind of like a matched pair, one for the A slot, one for the B slot. They're $429. And then I think the ones for the Mark II DX7s are about the same as the Mark I. They're about $199. So they cost a lot of money. However, in their defense, if you go online right now and search original DX7 cartridges, you'll be paying much the same price for an old vintage cartridge that can hold 32 or 64 patches. That one you just saw there holds nearly 13,000 patches. So it's basically 400 of those original carts. So in terms of value for money, it does kind of work out. And the best investment I ever made, because I never have to swap cartridges in and out of an old synthesizer, which I don't want to be moving things in and out of a lot. But they used to be, I've got some here. So they used to be made from, I think they were kind of like 3D printed layers, but that's them. Then they're sort of all engraved. They're very nice bits of kit, but now they're made from metal. It's all CNC manufacturers, but yeah, it looks really good. And if you are the owner of any of those kind of vintage DX synths, I can't recommend these highly enough.
Did you say they've done a D50 one?
They've done a D50 one as well.
Isn't that the same connector on the JD800, or is it complete? It was like a kind of credit card thing.
Yeah. Let me just. I've got the website here somewhere. We can have a quick look at it. But these, I mean, I've got a few of these modern DX replacement cartridges, and they are quite simply the best made, and certainly the biggest capacity. There's the D50 one. Oh, right. So
yeah, that's
so metal CNC case, and then that's what goes into the synth. So yeah, this bit will stick out at the back, so there will be some protrusion. But yeah, I don't know whether I don't think it says. I think these are exclusively for D50s, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
Might be worth dropping them a line and asking them.
Yeah.
But so basically you get 64 standard cartridges worth in there, and they're $199 plus shipping, or you can buy them direct from Music Store in the EU and Perfect Circuit in the US and Canada. But yeah, there you go. Hypersynth have got this new revision, and it looks rather nice. Any you must have some DXs between you guys at Cherry Hill. You must have something there.
Yeah, I gotta go list some vintage memory cartridges on eBay, because
seriously,
yeah.
My retirement pension is in a brown cardboard box there. I've got boxes of these things that I've been, sort of, they've either come with the synthesizer, and it's crazy the prices that people are charging. So when people sort of choke on the price of one of these, when you actually think about it, the amount of stuff that you get, because those old synths weren't designed to hold 500 or 1,000 patches like they are these days. So having it all on one of these and not having to constantly swap cartridges around is a real boon.
When you buy that, like if you buy the D50 one, does it come with patches, or do you have to find 12,000 patches?
Nope. it does come with patches. So, for example, with the D50, you've got what did I say? 64 cartridge worth. So that's 4,000 preset capacity on the D50 one. So you get the factory D50 sound bank in the first bank, and then there's at least another 10 or 11 collections of, and they're all categorized. So they actually put these together themselves, and so when you buy it, you do get, you know, a whole bunch of stuff.
So back in the day, we would pay $50 just for one bank of sounds.
Right.
And, I mean, it's worth it just for the presets alone.
And with the DX1, DX5 variant, which you have to you buy them as a pair, so it's two of these. One goes into slot A, and the other into slot B. And there's a reason for that, and it's to do with performances. But they released the first ever, this is crazy, the first ever commercial third-party sound bank for the DX1 and DX5 on these cartridges. There was never a third-party commercial sound bank ever made for those synths from the day they were launched.
Well, I hope all 10 people that own a DX1.
Well, I love them. I think they're great. They really are good sounds. There's a great demo video of them, but it was remarkable. It's the first time that somebody ever produced a commercial sound bank. And then you also get something like 50 odd extra banks of sounds that have been culled from around various places. So there you go. I
remember like 10 years ago or more, it's kind of a long story, but I bought an ESQ1 off somebody for $75. And and the guy also had a DX7 laying there. I'm like, oh, you're selling this? He's like, oh yeah, I'll sell you that for $75 too. And he gave me a pile of cartridges for both of them. Just threw them in. Yeah. Went home and listed all those cartridges and sold all those cartridges, and I ended up making money on the deal. And I sold the DX7 too, actually. Yeah. But even just the cartridges, I ended up making money on the deal and getting an ESQ1 out of it. And this was over a decade ago, and they were worth a lot then. So I'm sure they're worth a lot more now.
It's crazy. I mean, I've seen cartridges listed from anything between £75 for one cartridge to $650 for what is decidedly a rare expansion, I think, for the RX5 drum machine. $650. And the crazy thing is that virtually all of the patches that are on those cartridges are freely available on the internet, and all you have to do to get them in your synth is to sys-X them across.
People don't want a sys-X dump; they want to put in a cartridge.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the lesson.
Yeah, so buy yourself one of those, which will cost you the same price as an original cartridge, and then you can sys-X everything over to this and be done with it. So there you go. Hypersynth.com is the website, and you can order direct from them, or you can also order from, what did I say, was it Music Store in EU and Perfect Circuit in North America. There you go.
My workshop is full of them.
Oh, mate, gather them together. That'll be your
pension. It was full of DX1s, wasn't it? So,
but it was, yeah.
Yeah, for a while. But, my God.
Last thing I want to cover here, and I said I would because he's a friend of the show. So this is kind of an advert. We're not being paid for this, but it is kind of an advert. But I also thought this was a very interesting thing because I don't recall ever seeing or hearing about this when it first came out. So this, our friend Michael Whalen is selling this on Reverb. And it's his, and I hope I pronounced this right, it's his physical synthesis CICADA. And it's the Founders Edition. It's an extended limited edition version of the instrument. And it's a very peculiar synthesizer that uses these kind of blades to move around on these. Do you know what? I'm going to just show the video because I think that's going to be an easier way of kind of describing what this thing does. Where are we? Here we go. Physical synthesis from there, and let's play the video. So here we go. So it comes in this lovely customized case. And then
Today I want to talk about this new system that
I'm just going to skip through this.
made by physical synthesis called CICADA. It was very exciting.
Yeah, so you basically assemble these things on these pads, and then you put these little blades on top, and you move them around, and they kind of oscillate. There you go.
And this is just the sound that come out from an oscillator, an oscillator with no modulation. You can play with the height of the transducer, with the position.
Anyway, I don't want to dwell too long on that because we've kind of run out of time already. But what a weird synthesizer.
I was worried then that we'd come back from the clip and the two Cherry Audio guys would be going, they've sussed out our new design. But I don't think it's going to be that somehow.
No.
I can understand why Michael bought it, but like I can also understand why he's getting rid of it, because it's like it's something that would be fascinating, and then maybe for me anyway, I would get absolutely nothing out of that. I'd be intrigued by it, but then my use of it would go nowhere, I reckon.
Yeah.
And in the right hands, that could be a really creative bit of kit.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of that thing that Bjork used to use, that was the React table.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, and you place these blocks in different places, and each block had a function, and the thing would understand what that block did when you put it on it, and then perform that function. You could interlink them, and it was very cool. But I think there was even an iOS version of that. And I couldn't get my head around it. But
also like the Como electronic field kit kind of stuff, where they've got like the transducers and I'm talking about the springs and all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's a fascinating thing. And actually, I mean, he wants 2,000 UK, so I guess that's maybe a little less in US.
Am I imagining this, or does he say it's serial number 1? Description.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah,
that's serial number 1. So not only are you getting a very unique instrument, you're getting the very first production model. Only 120 made, apparently.
We love Michael Whalen. He's been a great supporter of Cherry Audio, and he helped us raise a lot of money for the Bob Moog Foundation recently.
This
and
is true.
He's got excellent taste in gear. So I imagine if he bought this and made a lot of music with it, it's probably pretty cool.
Well, that's the other way of looking at it as well. He might have had a project in mind for this when he bought it. He's done the project and now he doesn't need it anymore.
You can get the same effect, though, from throwing a stylophone in the bath.
Well, Rob...
No, go ahead.
Rob, is it basically... I don't know if you know, is it basically just like a transducer thing that vibrates this little wing-like thing in a magnetic field? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. It says basically CICADA receives 2 Eurorack level signals that drive oscillation in a cantilever or bridge positioned atop a soundboard at an adjustable height. Distortion caused by the bridge soundboard interaction adds frequency content to the input determined by the specific qualities of the system. I don't know what I just said. I just spoke words.
I would guess it's either like a piezo or a magnetic pickup or some sort. The idiot in me always looks at stuff like this and goes, I could build that. And of course it would be the worst version of it ever, but I think I could build that. A really low quality, crappy version that didn't work very well.
Do you remember, this has just reminded me, there was an application written for, I think it was for PC, and it was a drum machine thing, but what you had to do is you had to print off these cubes, and you would stick them, you cut them out and stick them together and make these cubes, and they had different symbols on. And then what you had to do is you had to get your webcam and point it down at a grid, and then you could put these things on the grid, and then the camera would see them, and then a piece of software would interpret them as a drum, as a drum thing. I can't remember what it was, and I even went out and bought that proper stiff paper,
Yeah.
And I printed them all off with the intention of doing it, and they're probably still in the box, never cut out, never stuck together. But
I built mine.
Oh, you did you?
I built mine, yeah.
Did it work?
No, it didn't work very well at all. It was like, oh, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be. Sort of like, off the desk.
Oh,
Move
dear.
on. What's next?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but I think this is squarely aimed at lots of Eurorack, because they keep talking about Eurorack and stuff. So this is really definitely not up my street. But Michael's selling this. It is official. It's all on Reverb, but we'll post the link if somebody hasn't already. Let me see if I can do that here. There we go. And you can go and check that out on Reverb. I think he actually did put it up on our Facebook page. Not my kind of thing, but maybe...
It's electronic history, isn't it? It's one of those little signposts along the way.
Yes.
Serial number 1 as well.
Yeah, there you
that
go.
was very
Makes
poetic.
it worthwhile. Yeah.
It's definitely imaginative and different.
In
I'd
the
like
right
to have a
hands,
go of
it's
it.
going to be. It's going to. Somebody's going to do incredible things with it. But I think certainly for somebody like me, I'll just be moving things around, getting very frustrated, putting it back on the box, and sticking it back on Reverb. Especially if it needs Eurorack, because there's nothing here. So.
It also seems like one of those things that, like, and this is kind of a Heimbach-y thing. Like, you can take any sound. You can take any sound, and if you put enough reverb and chorus on it, it'll sound cool.
Yeah. But no, it's kind of one of those. It's like Heimbach. This. I can imagine him doing some amazing things with this if he hasn't already. Yeah, but there you go. So if you want to own serial number 1 of the CICADA, whatever Founders Edition, it's on Reverb. It's on Michael Whalen Music Limited's page. I've just posted the link in the chat. It'll also be in the description in a couple of days' time when I get round to filling all of that out. That'll give me something to do whilst we're waiting for somebody's funeral on Monday. So yeah, it's there, and I promised I'd say plug it. So there you go. Hopefully somebody will pick that up and do some amazing things with it. Right, let's get rid of that. I think it's time we called it a night or a day or an afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Shall we just play that video one more time?
Yes.
Okay, for everyone that maybe joined the show a little bit later or was just super excited. So once again, this is a world premiere, world exclusive. This is the new teaser trailer for the new Cherry Audio product that is coming very, very soon. There we go. Ooh, I left that little pause in because it just builds.
Yeah, I think like once you know that it's an original synthesizer, you're like listening, like working what kind of synthesis is going on there. And
yeah, it sounds great as well.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the success of Elka-X and the continued success of everything that Cherry Audio has done and is doing. We cannot wait to talk about this thing, whatever it is. We don't know. They won't tell us.
They won't tell us either. We don't know.
You lie. No, it's fantastic, and I hope whatever it is that it will be, and I'm sure it will be super successful. Like you said, I think you said your most successful instrument was your last original instrument, so hopefully this will do that. And Jason Crouch has even just donated £5 and says he can't wait for the 6. Me either. Mitchell, great. Dan, thank you ever so much again for coming on. This is like the 3rd time now I think we've had you guys on. Please do come back when this thing comes out or when you got something else. And thank you ever so much for letting us play that, because that's like a world exclusive. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's early birds, but that was more like an egg.
Yes.
There you go. Guess what's in that?
Indeed.
I wish we could tell you more, but it won't be long. Thank you. No. Thanks to all of you for having us on again. We love being on your show.
Yeah.
We really do appreciate the support that you guys give to Cherry Audio, and thanks for playing our videos, when we have new products and all of that. And our condolences on the loss of your queen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's been a sad few days. Because there's people here that royalists, and some aren't, some are, but at the end of the day, she's been around for a long time.
Even if you're not a royalist, she was still a nice old lady.
She was a nice old lady, and it is quite sad. But there you go. Times they are a changing, and interesting times ahead. So thank you, guys. We will be back same time, same place next week. I do want to, however, say, I just wanted to throw this up on the screen. So next week, we're hoping that we're going to get Mike Metlay on, who's going to tell us all about his adventures at NobCon, which was last weekend in Chicago, hosted by the fantastic suit and tie guy, as per usual. I just wanted to throw this up on the screen. This is a photo that was shared amongst various people on the internet. This is 5 guys at NobCon, and I saw this picture and I said, he's been on the show, he's been on the show, he's been on the show, he's been on the show. And they got all the way to the left, and I said, that's Marcus Ryle. He hasn't been on the show. We need to remedy that. And I commented as such on one of those photos, and Marcus literally got straight back to me and said, let's fix this. Yes. And so Marcus Ryle, who has been heavily involved, of course, with the OBX8 of late, and was heavily involved with Oberheim all the way back in the day, and has done many, many great things in between those two markers. Marcus will be on the show November 11th. He is booked, he's confirmed, he's going to be here. Cannot wait to have a chat with Marcus. So he's going to be here November 11th. As I said, next week we've got hopefully Mike Metlay. We've just got to firm up the deets there, but I'm sure he's going to say yay or nay in the chat. We've got Bob Coover from Groove Synthesis, who of course are just about to launch the third wave. Sounds interesting. They're just about to launch the third wave. Third wave of what? It's an amazing synthesizer. It's like a PPG on steroids, and then some more. It looks and sounds incredible. So Bob's going to be on at the end of the month, September 30th. As I mentioned before, we've got the GPU audio guys coming on October 14th. Marcus on November 11th, and then David Gamson, ex of Scritti Politti, is going to be joining us on December the 2nd. Cannot wait to speak to David again. He's an amazing guy, super cool guy with an amazing history. We've also got Synthfest UK that is going to be on October the 8th. I'm going to be there from the 7th, and I've been given permission to walk the halls during load-in, and providing I don't get in anybody's way, we might be able to do some live interviews or maybe some exclusive sneak peeks at certain things whilst I'm there, providing the Wi-Fi stands up. So fingers crossed, we'll have maybe some super booth Synthfest exclusives coming up. We'll do super booth next year if you guys donate enough money. We can buy tickets. But yeah, so there you go. Lots of stuff coming up. Thank you once again, everyone. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you for all your questions, your feedback, your input. If you haven't already, please do hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. It really means a lot to us that you do, and it helps kind of like further our name in the algorithm, or however that works. And thank you again to Mitchell, to Dan of Cherry Audio. Keep your eyes peeled on cherryaudio.com and their YouTube channel and their Facebook presence as well for more teaser information, I'm sure, between now and October 6th. And the best of luck with whatever it is, because I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
Can't wait.
Indeed. And we will see you same time, same place next week. Have a fantastic, safe weekend, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Don't forget Ramsey tomorrow, and Jamie and Dom on the Sunday as well, all on YouTube. Go and follow those guys. Go and support them. They're great. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.